Okay, so it's 10.3 that we're doing today, and it's compound interest. I don't think this marker is going to live for very much longer. So in 10.2, we did simple interest, and it was like you needed to borrow money or you needed a line of credit. And then the interest with simple interest usually is the money you pay back. You could still earn some money with a simple interest, but with compound interest, primarily it is, in this homework at least, for this school, when you do it, it's like money you're earning from your own money. You're not asking the bank to give you money and then you always pay them back money. Hey, you actually, in this section, have a certain amount of money. And what you're going to do is you're going to like open up something with the bank, and then based off of the rate and how much money you have, like you earn a certain amount of money back. Okay, so they talk a lot in this section about investments. And so an investment is using money or capital for income or profit. I don't know what I thought, but I started writing something completely different. Using money or capital for income or profit. Okay. And then we have these two different types of investments that they could possibly talk about. I think it's like the first homework problem. I'm pretty much 100% positive it's the first homework problem. And it'll be like one of these two that they'll ask you. The first type of investment is a fixed investment, and this is where the principal is guaranteed. And interest is computed at a fixed rate. Sorry. Interest is computed at a fixed rate. And then the other type of investment would be a variable investment. And here, principal nor interest is guaranteed. And y'all will only need this top half of this paper answering that first homework problem. So principal nor interest is guaranteed. But neither of them. Okay, and so let's actually look at the formula that you use when you're doing a compound interest problem. Okay, so the compound interest formula I'm going to change colors. Okay, so what we do, the formula is A equals P, open, 1 plus, we have our rate over our N, so R over N, close. If you notice the N, that's the new variable that we're going to need to define, okay? Now you also need to raise this set of parentheses to the N times T power. Everything as far as variable wise, we've seen IPRT, right? So here's our P, there's our R, and there's our T. What's new is, we did talk about it last time, but this is being set equal to A, so that's the future value. And then we have this N that we haven't figured out what that is yet. Okay, now in this formula, our A is future value accumulated. It is the accumulated amount that you have in the future, okay? And then the same with simple. Our P here is our principal, comma, amount invested. It's like the initial amount, what you would start with. We have our R, which is rate as a decimal. Our T, which is time in years. With the simple interest formula, we could do days, months, years. I did go down a rabbit hole, which was really annoying, trying to turn something into months and days, and it got ugly there for a second. With compound interest, they need that T to be in years, okay, only years. And then lastly, what's new in this 10.3 section is we have that variable N, which is the number of compounds per year. And then right here, I'm going to go ahead and like kind of smush all the different type of N's that you can see within a word problem. And that tells you what to actually put into your formula. And I just called them type of N's. You could make it very much more wordy, and I did not. So the different types of N's that we could see. Well, you kind of can't tell that it's a different color, but I am trying to use pink here. If you have a problem and it's like you are investing so much money at this rate for this many years, compounded daily, right? That daily is what determines what our N would be. With this homework, y'all, this whole section, it could just be the book. I have taught before where it was 365, but remember, I know, I see you racing. Remember in the last section, with the simple interest, we always acted as if every single month had 30 days, 12 months in a year. That would equal 360 days in the year. And just in case, you know, it was something that's forgotten in the problem itself, if it's daily, it tells you use N equal 360. Because, I mean, obviously daily in our mind is 365. Okay? It could tell you amount of principal for so many years at this certain rate, compounded weekly. It's always funny, and it seems like a trick question, but it's really not. Does anyone know how many weeks are in a year? I know, 52. And I think I just know that because I like use it all the time. My last class, they were like 50-ish. I'm like, yeah, that's right. About 50-ish. 52 to be exact. Okay? And then another different type of N that we could be given, because the interest that the bank keeps compounding on top of your money could be that they compound it monthly. That one's a little bit easier because that one's going to be N equals 12. So obviously, if you got a good amount of interest being, you know, added to your money daily, that's good, right? Weekly, you're not getting it as often as daily. Monthly, it kind of goes down a little bit again. If they tell you that your interest is being compounded quarterly, that one should be fairly simple to think of, because when you think of quarters, you think there's, you know, 4 to make $1. This is saying quarterly throughout the year, 4 different times in the year, they are adding X amount of interest to your money, okay? And then we have semi-annually. This would be in your formula, you would make your N equal 2. And then the last one that we have, that this is like the only ones I've ever used before. I told the last class, and I'm going to tell y'all just in case, if they happen to use some other type of, measurement, y'all just tell me. But it should just be these options. The last one would be annually. If they tell you, hey, give me your money, this is the rate I can offer you, I'll keep it for this many years, and I'll compound your interest annually. That means once a year, the amount of interest is going to be added to your money. And, daily could look really good, but if your rate's really small, you might not get the most money. Whereas with a higher rate, you could have it compounded once a year and end up with more money. Okay? All right. Let's do this example. Were you going to use this? Were you going to be able to get one? Yeah. Well, because I have to use this. This is the only one that I ended up having now. Someone bought the other one I had. So I need this one to actually teach with, like doing your homework. Let me go and write this on here. Doing your homework, it's very, very, very similar on your phone. I think calculator. Right here, Desmos calculator. So on here for the fraction, it's N over D. On that, it's on your phone. The format's kind of different, obviously, and it says like A over B, but it's still in a fraction form. So it should make sense. Like, oh, I push this to create the fraction, and then I fill it in. But you could do that to do your homework, and then you could use this during the test. Okay, I did have another one, and then someone bought it from me. And then we do have the one that we're both trying to figure out right now, but I'm sure we can. If it's like what she has, or this, if you're able to get one. If not for a test, I can make sure I have this for you. I just can't let you take it home, because then what am I going to teach it? That's the only thing that I've run into, okay? Okay, so we're going to do this problem. Okay, let me move all my stuff around. The other option for this class was this calculator. If you're good at the order of operations, you have to kind of compute it all by hand, but you could get the exact same type, and it's like $15 in the bookstore. This one, it kind of does it all for you, and it's like in 15 seconds instead of 5 minutes. That's the difference. Okay, so I'm going to use the TI-30XS since I know that we have everyone kind of working with that right now. Okay, so what we have is compute future value and the interest earned. That's our directions. Future value is A, and A is future value. And the interest earned. Oh, let me go and write the word earned. Okay. So first example, you'll notice on the homework they can get pretty wordy. I didn't do every single example very wordy, just a few. Okay, so say we have $6,550 invested for 2 years. At 5% compounded semi-annually. The moment I see the word compounded, and if I know for a fact I'm working in the 10.2 homework, I know I'm using the formula that we just wrote on the previous page. Okay, and I'm going to write it right here. Okay, the compound interest formula is found by using A equals P open 1 plus R over N close N to the T power. This quite literally is set equal to A. All of the work is done on the right. On the left-hand side is where we have one variable by itself. This is telling me I'm solving for A, which is future value. It told me to compute future value and the interest earned. So it's going to be like 2 steps to figure out both of the answers, okay? Now with a formula, in order to solve for this one variable, I need to know everything else over here, every single thing, okay? And so because it told me to compute the future value and A is future value, that's telling me that, I need to solve for it. I don't know it. So I'm just going to work. I'm going to say, well, I don't know what my future value is. And then, honestly, you could work through all of these variables and kind of find them in here. I actually really like to read my problem. What is this? Write it down. What is this? Write it down. Because they'll give it to you in all these different ways. The first thing I see is $6,550 invested, right? My P is the principal, or like the amount invested. So I'm going to write P equals 6550. And whenever I bring down all my variables, you could lose like the dollar sign, and obviously we need to convert that decimal and stuff like that, okay? Then it says right here, it's invested for 2 years. That would be my time. And it's in years, so I just write 2. It says at 5%, the fact that it has that percent symbol, I know that's my rate, but in order to work with it within my formula, it needs to be rate as a decimal. So you could do this so many different ways. You can just know that the decimal goes right to the right of the 5, right to the end of it. And you would move it 2 times to the left or divide it by 100 in your calculator. You should get 0.05. And then I noticed compounded semi-annually. That word right there is what tells me what my N is. Semi-annually means that my interest is being compounded twice per year. Now I take all of this information and I plug it into this formula, and the exact way that it looks, put it into here, and then it solves it. It answers it. I wonder if I have my Desmos. Because if I do, I can go ahead and show you right now. GES. I thought it was FRO. I got it. I'm just going to show you right here. That way you see it. So when you're sitting there doing your homework, you got it. So it says scientific. You look up Desmos calculator. It says scientific, and it's like the cubed root of 27. That's what it looks like. That's the icon. And then whenever you open it, it basically just allows you to enter a problem. So I'm going to do it with the XS. I'm going to do it with my phone. And then I'm very begrudgingly going to do it doing the order of operations with this one. And then for the rest of the class, I'm just going to use the one that I like, okay? But I'm going to help anybody with whatever they need help with, okay? So let me just enter everything in. I don't know A. That's future value. I'm trying to compute the future value. Okay, equals. P is 6550 open. In a formula, if you see a number, that number does not change. Variables change. Numbers fix. They're just what they are. So you always do the number 1. Plus, we would have our fraction, rate, over our N, close, N, times T. So, here's what you do. If you have an XS multi-view, you open it, and it's just a habit for me to just hit clear a couple of times, just in case anything's stored in there. I do 6550. The button above the 8 is a parenthesis. So I open. I type the number 1, I type plus. And then now it's a fraction. 3 buttons above 7, 1, 2, 3, it says N over D, which is numerator over denominator. So now I actually have what looks to be a fraction, but it's like a blank fraction, right? So numerator, I'm going to do 0.05. I use this cursor to go down, and I type 2. Don't try to close the parenthesis right here. Do you see how I'd added it in the denominator? Like, you don't want to do that. I'm going to actually highlight it and delete it real quick. After I do 2 in my denominator, I need to scoot over to the right. This is where I close it with the parenthesis that's above the number 9. Okay, so at your 7, to the left once and then up once, it looks like an upside down V. It's called a caret. When you touch that, it goes from being like normal in line with everything, and it pulls it up to the exponential field. You type 2 times 2 and you hit enter. The future value. After 2 years, starting at 6550, the amount that I go and redeem or cash out is $7,229.97. So this is my future value, right? So that's one of my answers. I can go and box that in. That would be one of the blanks on the homework. And then do you see where it says, and the interest earned? Come here, let me see. Because it could just be a difference in calculator. So let's go and work on that one. Let me see. Okay. I see why. Look right here. Do you see how you do your principal? You open, you do the number 1, and then plus the fraction. You have your, do you see it? You have your open, your 1, no plus, and then you have your fraction. So to my knowledge, what we can do is, I just am kidding you. Okay, so I kept pushing up, and it looks like it kind of grabbed it again. So I'm working on it right now. I'm blinking right here. I do the plus. I'm going to scoot over all the way till I'm there. Close. Where's your caret button? Is it that one? So if I do here, I get 2 times 2, and I hit enter. 72299. There you go. But if you look at your answers, that was saying that you made like 2 cents. Right, because it was just in a very strange form. If you look at your questions, I know people are always told this their whole lives, but you should be able to look at your answer and be like, okay, that's realistic, right? If you accidentally put in 5 instead of 0.05, it's going to be a much larger amount that you got as a future value. And so you should be like, if I started at 6,550 in 2 years, let me see what that would be. I am just kind of curious. You didn't even convert the 5% to a decimal, right? You just entered that in. So you started with just above $6,000, and in 2 years, you almost made $1 million. Please don't put that on a test. You could look at it and be like, hold on a minute, that's a ton. Let me just clear. Let me do it all over again, okay? So, and I like this calculator because I can go and highlight it. I just wanted to play around with that. I can hit clear. It goes away. This is what we're working with, okay? So this is not the interest. This right here, the A is future value and future value is A. The future value is what you initially invested and your interest, right? The simple interest, it just gave us our I. With A, it adds them both together. And it's like, hey, in the future, this is what you have. So if it tells you to figure out what the interest is alone by itself, what you do is if you have the future value and you subtract the principal, you get the interest. Do y'all agree with me? The answer is yes. This is my future value, right? I have it already in my calculator. Keep this in your calculator. It wants to know the interest. Let me subtract my principal, 6550. It still has that previous answer in there. So let me clear this. I'm going to actually just grab this and push it through again so that now this is what it's working with, because me trying to add it, it kept it. It has a memory, and it'll use it against you. Okay, so I have my future value. This is principal and interest added together. If all I want to know is interest, let me subtract my principal, and that's my interest. Okay, the $679.97, that's how much money I earned. investing that 6550 for this long at this rate with this number of compounds. Okay, the easiest thing is just, if you're doing a compound interest formula and it wants interest, leave your answer in and just subtract that principal. Okay, and y'all, just as a note, we've seen that formula before. We saw it the other day. It was A equals P plus I, right? My future value is going to come from what did you start with and add that interest. So I kind of just, solve for something different to get the interest, because I know I have an A and I know I have a P. I used both of those and I was able to get my I. That makes sense, y'all? Okay, so just because I said I would, I want to make sure I cover all kinds of bases, because not everybody has the exact same kind of technology as everybody else. So this is a Desmos scientific. Yeah, it would just be like a scientific calculator. Okay, so I'm going to enter in this formula right here. Okay, so I have my A is equal to 6550. Everything's the same so far. My parentheses are on the bottom left. I open it once. It already lets me know, like, hey, make sure you close this, okay, because it's kind of faint. I need to do the number 1. Make sure you don't forget to do your plus sign. And then that's a fraction. So if you look right here, just above like your blue kind of like enter button, it says A over B. All that does is just creates for me a blank fraction to be able to enter my stuff in. And then I've got 0.05. I can just touch the blank. It doesn't want me to touch it. You know what? Do these arrows right here above the blue. That kind of moves it around. Just kidding. I feel like last year I could just touch it. There we go. I just had fat fingers. Okay, so now I'm in the the denominator, and I do 2. Now I scoot over, and I close, and then I notice I need to go up into the exponential field and do 2 times 2. And so if you hit the button that says A to the B, that means you make your exponent whatever you want it. A squared, it's just going to square it. A to the B, all it does is pull you up, and you do 2 times 2. And then right there, you get 7,229 and 97 cents. Okay, so this is just something that you could use, and you can enter in the exact same things here. Can't let you use it on a test, obviously, but you have this same type of technology at your fingertips while you're at home, okay? Okay, and then you would just subtract the 6550, right? That's like a normal calculation. Okay, y'all. Let's use my favorite calculator in the whole wide world. Okay, so this is the TI-30XA. And it is just a little bit more tedious, and it does take longer. So I'm going to do it one time just in case. Okay, this is the only thing you can get, and you just need to know how to solve it. Let's do it. So my formula for my future value is 6550 open 1 plus 0.05 over 2 close 2 times 2. Okay, so you have to do the order of operations if you have this calculator. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very beautiful, but I believe that, if you're not in algebra, I don't want something like this to confuse anybody, Parentheses, I see multiple parentheses. This looks a little bit easier, and it's going to end up being my exponent. So I'm going to go and rewrite my problem. I'm going to do that math. It could be 12 times 18. Like, it could be big, right? So just go and do that multiplication. So 6550 open 1 plus 05 close to the 4th power. Still have parentheses. I'm going to work in here. Okay, I just keep on hitting it on and on and on and on. Okay, you do the division first. 0.05 divided by 2. Hit enter. Add the 1. Okay. Now if you wanted to, hold on. Yeah, that's it right there. If you wanted to, what did I do in the last class? Okay, that's right. if you wanted to rewrite the problem putting this in your parentheses, you can, okay? Or does it make sense that the next step would be to raise it to the fourth power? So if you do the y to the x, which is above your division, it allows you to put whatever you have as your exponent. You hit enter, and we have all of this. If you wanted to rewrite that, like, you can. I did a bunch of rewriting in my last class, and it was kind of annoying. Now I'm thinking there's a way to simplify it. This is my parentheses raised to the fourth power. Last step would be to multiply it to 6550. I get 7229.97. Okay, so this one you kind of are in charge of doing some of the order of operations, and it can be messed up easily. So if you don't understand it and you need help, just let me know. Okay, moving on. Yeah, I like wrote things and then deleted things. And it was not pretty. Not pretty at all. Okay. So, for this example, number 2, you receive an inheritance of $17,000. I kind of can't tell that that was a 17, so I try to add another one. Okay, you invest in a 21-year CD, which at the bank, if you have any amount of money, you can go and you can get a certificate of deposit. And it could be for a number of years based off of the initial amount you invested at a certain rate. Like, and you could use that money, for profit or income. Basically make money off your money, right? So you invest this $17,000 in a 21-year CD. That pays %8 interest. Compounded monthly. How much will you redeem in 21 years? I smushed it. I smushed it on the page. Keyword to me, compounded. And I know immediately that I'm doing the compound interest. I am going to write what that formula is, and then I'm going to read through my problem, and I'm going to find all the different variables. Okay. Now, because it says how much will you redeem in 21 years, 21 years is in the future, right? So that lets me know that it's A equals. Okay, so I have A equals P open 1 plus R over N close all raised to the NT power. And I just kind of go through there and I read this problem again. Excuse me. So it says you receive an inheritance of $17,000. That doesn't necessarily tell me that it's my principal. It's the next sentence that says that I invested it, right? I choose with this money that I inherited to invest it. It is still the $17,000, but it's this word invest right here that tells me that that is my principal. That is the amount that I invested. That is the initial amount that begins this certificate of deposit. Okay, the fact that it says 21 years tells me that I have my time. It is in years, so I just write 21. They say that this CD pays 8%. Go and add a little S there. Okay, if I see that percent symbol, I know it's my rate. When I convert this to a decimal, it's 0.08. And then interest is compounded monthly. My N is the number of compounds. This says monthly, so my N is 12. How much will I redeem? What will I have in the future? I don't know. Let me solve for that. Okay, so A equals, you start with your P, which was 17,000, open 1 plus N over D for the fraction. It says take your rate, which is my 0.08, divide it by my N, which is 12, raise all of that to the N times T power. This is an example of what I meant earlier. If it's 2 times 2 in your calculator, when you raise it, you could just type 4. If it's 8 times 3, you know, anything little like that, just you could do it in your head if you can. Something like this, I won't even do that in my head. Bless you, that's just too big. Okay, so I'm gonna open up my calculator, and I have PTSD when it comes to it having a memory, so I clear. Okay, I type 17000. I open 1 plus N over D. 0.08, go down. 12 over. Close, caret. 12, open, 21, close. Just type it all in the exact same way you see it. And then you hit enter, and that's your answer. The only thing is that I've noticed a lot of students might have a problem with is like maybe the rounding, like, because we're dealing with money. So you round to the nearest like cent, okay? Now, what this is saying is if you have $17,000, y'all, and you put it in a certificate of deposit at the bank for 21 years, paying 8%, and this amount of interest is calculated every single month and added to your money every single month. In 21 years, what you cash out is $90,707.32. That is a significant amount of change. Whole bunches of money. That makes sense? Okay. I'm going to go and try to see if I can't get this next problem on this page just to kind of follow what I have in my notes. Okay. Third problem. Okay, so this one, I made it less wordy than how it is on the homework. On the homework, it's like a group of students in junior high that did a fundraiser, collected money, and you're like, oh my gosh, like there's a whole bunch of words. Okay, there's certain things that you're looking for, right? What is their initial amount? What did they invest? What's the time? What's the rate? And how was it compounded? Okay, so kind of look through all of the other words that they use that are not important. Okay, I pulled this from an example. Say we have $1,500. Invested for 18 months in a certificate of deposit. We've kind of already said what CD means, so I'm just going to write CD now, okay, instead of writing that whole thing each time. Okay, so I'm investing it into this CD, paying 1.9% compounded monthly. It was at this example, I was like, oh, they must use monthly a lot in this homework because I keep using it in my examples. Okay, so it says, what is redeemed when cashed out? So at the end of this time period, how much do I have in the future, right? So what is redeemed when cashed out? I see the word compounded. I know I'm going to do the compound interest formula. I'm going to start finding all of my things. $1,500 invested. So that tells me that's my P. Okay, I can go and write P equals 1500. Here, it says 18 months. But it already told me on page 1 that whenever I do compound interest, I need my time to be in years. So 18 months, the way you figure out how to convert months into years is you do however many months they give you divided by 12. If it said 36 months, you do 36 divided by 12. It said 92 months, however many months, right? 18 divided by 12 is 1.5. This is what we use for our T because it said time in years. It didn't say time in months. So my time is 1.5. Y'all, if you think about it, that should make sense, right? 1 whole 12 fits into 18, and then there's a remainder of 6 months, which is half a year, right? 0.5. Okay, paying 1.9%, that's my rate. You do 1.9 divided by 100, or move the decimal yourself. It's whichever one's easier for you. So I get 0.019. And then here, compounded monthly N is 12. What is redeemed when I cash out? Well, that's going to be the future value. I don't know that. But I know I'm going to use A equals 1500 open 1 plus 0.019 over 12 close raised to the n times t power, so 12 times 1.5. And that's me using this formula with this information and then plugging it in. And you pick up your handy dandy calculator. Clear, 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 clear. 1500 open. 1 plus n over d. 0.019 go down. 12 over 12. I'm sorry. I looked down and I didn't do what I should have done. Once I'm in the denominator, and then I go over to the right, I opened this parenthesis. Here, my formula is showing me to close it. Then you do your caret, 12 times 1.5, enter. So, the amount of money that I have that I cash out after 18 months is $1,543.33. Does not seem like it was a ton of money. 18 months is, I mean, that's a decent amount of time, but that rate, right? Like what they're actually figuring out is your interest and then adding it to you each month. 1.9% is really, really tiny. So that's why it ends up not really being that much. So if you were to get something really huge, like that could kind of be your first clue. Make sense? Okay. So, do you remember when we did the simple interest? It was like I equals PRT. And I was like, but what if they have you solve for time, right? So we kind of solved the formula for time. What if they have you solve for principal? We solved the formula for principal. And we had all of those different variations that we could just instantly plug stuff into instead of doing the algebra, right? I went ahead and did that. What is this? I went ahead and did that for y'all. I think the homework should also show it to you this way. If you were to do like view an example, because it will walk you through each and every single step. But in case they didn't give you this variation, I gave it to you as well. What we're going to do is how to solve a compound interest problem for principal. They're saying what you don't know is the principal, which means you have to know every other variable. Now, that formula doesn't really have like a specific name or like how compound interest, right? Because it's still using the same exact formula, but things have just been moved around. What we would do is P equals, you have kind of a decent sized fraction. In the numerator, right in the middle, you just have A, because that's your future value. In the denominator, you open 1 plus R over N closed to the NT power. Exact same components as the compound, but things have just been moved around. Like that algebraic work has already been done for you. Okay. This problem's kind of wordy, but I mean, it could be worse. Okay. So, let's do the papers here. Ready? To purchase a vehicle in 18 years, you need $14,000. So to purchase a vehicle in 18 years, you need $14,000, period. If a CD pays 2.03% compounded quarterly, how much should you invest? And if you did have that first page in front of you, or you wrote it multiple times and it just, sticks in your brain and you remember, the amount invested is your principal, which is my P. So that tells me I need to figure out what P is. I need to solve for P, right? So I'm going to go through this problem. I'm going to find what I need. To purchase a vehicle in 18 years. That's my time. Is 18. Okay, it says you need 14,000. When do I need 14,000? I need 14,000 in 18 years, which is in the future. In the future, I need to have an accumulated amount of $14,000. If a CD pays 2.03%, that's my rate, but it's not 2.03. It's 0.0203. Get your calculator, clear it, 2.03, divide it by 100. Or move that decimal yourself physically 2 times to the left. Compounded, that's my N, it says quarterly, which is 4. Last question, how much should you invest? My principal is how much money I initially invested. I don't know my principal. And y'all doing a P equals question mark, like obviously that's just kind of, it's just kind of what I do. Because I don't know my principal, that means I'm solving for my principal, which means principal needs to be a loan solved for, right? I wouldn't do the A equals, I'm doing the P equals, okay? So, P equals fraction bar. In the numerator, it says A, which is future value, which I have 14,000. Denominator, open, 1 plus N over D, rate, 0.0203, divided by or over my N, which is 4. Scoot over, close, N times T. So 4 times 18. Okay, I think we kind of decided this is the one I was going to use to compute the problems, okay? I've got some other class Desmos calculator for homework. I'm going to email them before I leave. So personally, always clear, right? The bigger picture that I see here is that it's a fraction. So I start with the N over D. Okay, moving forward, I think this is good practice because when we like do fixed installments, for sure, like when we start buying homes, we could have a lot of things going on in the numerator, and you don't want to enter all that in and then hit that N over D button because it might not put everything in the numerator. It might just put some of it, and then you just broke math. Like you won't be able to figure out what your mortgage is or whatever. So if you notice you've got a big fraction with stuff on the top and on the bottom, immediately just start with that N over D button. Now I type 14000. I go down and I start typing everything I see here. So that's open 1 plus, that's a fraction, I do N over D, 0.0203. I go down to type 4. I scoot over to the right to close, and then I'm going to hit the caret button and I do 4, open, 1, 8, close, enter. And so what I end up getting is A equals P equals 900, just kidding, $9,723.85. What this is saying is if in 18 years you want $14,000 and this is the rate the bank's giving you and they'll add your interest quarterly, you have to invest initially, start out with $9,723.85. Y'all, you basically have to have the majority of your money. And the reason why is because that interest is just like really small. Say they had like an 8% interest, you definitely wouldn't need almost 10 grand, right? Or if they had a higher interest and they compounded more often, you definitely wouldn't need a like initial amount either. That was that high. Okay. Oh, we have one more problem left. Okay. Okay. So we did simple interest in 10.2. This is compound interest. There could be examples where you have a certain amount of money and you go to one bank, and they'll give you the interest, but it's going to be calculated with simple interest, and another bank tells you compound interest, and you could do the math and compare to see which one gives you the most interest back, right? The problem itself, you can't just really guess. It's not like a 50-50. It actually wants you to compute both, and then whichever one has the most, we're going to actually do, subtraction to figure out by how much more is it the most. So it's like definitely a multi-step, okay? Okay, so which earns more interest between a simple and a compound interest problem? That's what it's titled. It's basically just which earns most interest. Which earns more interest, I mean. between a simple or a compound interest problem. Okay, well, let's go and write what our problem is. We've got our simple is what? I equals P or T versus the A equals P open 1 plus R, like that whole thing that we've done today, right? So this is what I read in the homework. It says simple interest on $100,000 for 2 years at a 3% rate. Or compound interest on $100,000 for 2 years at 3% rate. If you notice, everything's been the same so far, right? The difference is going to be that for the compound interest, there is a number of compounds, right? The interest continuously is getting added at these different increments, okay? At 3% rate, compounded quarterly. Ow, I just stabbed myself. So if I am comparing the interest using simple interest and the interest using compound interest, I've got two different things that I'm working with. I kind of just divided my page into columns. Right here, I'm going to look at the simple interest, which I know that formula is I equals PRT. I'll look up at all the information they've given me. It says the simple interest on $100,000 for 2 years at a 3% rate. So I'm trying to see what my interest is. I don't know. I have I equals. My principal is going to be the amount of money I'm going to be getting interest on. They didn't really tell you it's being invested. It just tells you that amount of $100,000 open. You do P times R times T. R is rate. 3% is 0.03. Close. Then times our time, which is 2. If you put this into your calculator, you get that your interest is $6,000. And then for the compound interest part of this problem, I know that the formula is A equals P open 1 plus R over N closed to the NT power. It tells me that I still have the same 100,000. It's still for 2 years. It's still at 3%, but it's going to be compounded quarterly. So what I have is, we can go and write this down here now, because there's just a little bit more involved in this formula, right? My principal is the 100,000. My rate is the 0.03. My N is 4. Time is still 2. Don't know my A. Yes, I am trying to solve for interest, but this is the formula. The last step is to do what we did on that very first problem to figure out what the interest is. So A equals 100,000 open 1 plus fraction 0.03 over 4 close 4 times n times t, 4 times 2. So you get your calculator, you turn it on and you clear it. 100 000 open. 1 plus, this is a fraction, so I do the n over d button. 0.03 go down, type 4, go over, close, use your caret to raise it to the 4 times 2 power. I could have just did 8, but I just didn't do 8. What I get for the future value using compound interest is $106,159.88. Obviously, the A equals is much larger than the left-hand side, but the left-hand side is only telling us the amount of interest. The right-hand side is A. A is future value. And don't I know future value to be the principal and the interest added together, right? So if I mess with that formula sum, okay, I know that future value is P plus I. But right here, I'm just trying to compare the i's. So let me subtract P from both sides. I get A minus P equals I. So, y'all, while you still have this in your calculator, and it's good too, because, you know, I wouldn't round. I would subtract the $100,000 that I initially invested, and what I get is that the interest that I earned using compound interest is $6,159.88 is my interest. All of that work to figure out which one earned more interest, simple or compound. Here are my interests, right? What I notice is that compound interest earned it wants a dollar amount. You can't just be like, oh, it's compound interest and move on. You actually need to do the work and figure out what it is. So if I still have the interest from my compound work and I want to know what the difference is between the simple interest, leave it in your calculator and subtract the simple interest. The difference in the compound and the simple is that with the compound interest, it ended up earning $159.88 more interest. Does that make sense, y'all? Okay, definitely like some multi-steps. They are wordy. It doesn't say you got an inheritance. It actually says, like, how do I do this?